In this video, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the Vertical Curriculum Analysis assignment. It's found in the Assignments tab in the Canvas shell. It's the largest assignment that you have to complete this semester. Actually, it's one of the larger ones. I think it's probably the longest one. So I think it'd be in your best interest to get started right away. The main reason I'm giving you this overview, though, is because I added an option to the assignment that I think will flow better for you, be easier to complete. But I also think it's going to be more valuable because you'll spend more time focused on the standards that are of highest priority, or the priority standards. Just a quick overview of the assignment itself. You can read the purpose. In the overview, you're supposed to pick one of the four Colorado Content Standards, and then depending on which one you select, you would actually track the elements in that standard across grade levels in a comparison using a document like this one. You can see it's really just a table. This one's probably created from a table in a Word document, and listed across the tops the grade levels, kindergarten through 6, and then down the side in the rows you see standards. So here, this is not a Colorado Content Standard. It says count objects 0 to 10 and write numerals. That's stated from another state. That's not how Colorado states it. And then you would track that same standard across grade levels. The next one in first grade is relate, connect words, numerals, anyway. And then you track it all the way on up to 6th grade. So within that standard, there'd be several of these points, or performance indicators is what they'd really be, and then you'd track them across the grades. You can see that not every standard goes clear across 6 grades. In fact, not many of the Colorado standards cover all 6 grades. Most of them will cover 3 or 4. Some start at kindergarten and go all the way through. That is possible. You see one here that's only in kindergarten. You'll see one eventually that starts in 2nd grade, one that starts in 3rd grade and tracks across, one that's only in 4th, 5th, and 6th. So all that can happen as you go through the performance indicators within a standard strand. Anyway, that matrix is the first product that you'll create. And then the second product, after you've gone through your standard and completed that matrix is this executive summary. In the executive summary, there are 4 sections. You literally divide your paper into these 4 sections. It's 2 to 3 page paper. The domain selected is one section, so you'll highlight and name the section domain selected. You'll tell which domain you selected, which means which standard area did you decide to cover. And then you'll title the next section, how it builds across grades and how concepts are connected. That'll be the title. And then you'll discuss within that standard, how did it build across grades and how did the concepts connect to each other, just as it says. And then the third section you'll title Teaching for Conceptual Understanding. And in that section you'll discuss how you'll approach that standard, Teaching for Conceptual Understanding. And then the 4th section you'll title Your Key Learning from the Assignment, which really is, after you completed the assignment, what's your main takeaway? There's no wrong answer here. I will not count anything wrong. That is clearly and professionally written. Now, to the option that I think that could take a long time, and plowing through one of these standards it can be pretty complex. It's hard to even determine meaning from several of the standards in the way that they're written. So here's the option that I think is better. You can use the math progression documents instead of a standard. Now, standards are in the math progression documents. The math progression documents are like, I showed you one on the first night where I listed the sequence of learning that we discussed in that given night, and what I talked about was the sequence is such that they need to do 1 before they do 2, before they do 3, and so on. But that really doesn't have to do with this assignment. You notice that I bolded certain statements here. The things that I bolded track directly to Colorado Math Standards. So what you do if you're going to use the standards, so if you're going to use this option, the math progression option, is you go to the math progression document, you look at the bolded items, you go to the Colorado Academic Standards, and you match, you find the standard that matches that item. And this one's pretty easy to find. The first night we talked about counting to 100, our first class, our first afternoon. If you go to the math standards, you'll find that in kindergarten under standard, this standard here, counting and cardinality. And here's the exact words: count to 100 by ones and by tens. So there's the standard. And I want you to use the specific wording, so the evidence outcome would be the appropriate thing to put in there. And then if you open up this template if you're using the math progression option, then you'll want to open the high priority standards cross-grade comparison template. And I actually created a template for you, so you don't have to create the table. It's already created. And you'll see that I've already put kindergarten standards in for that first math progression document. So you see, counting to 100, I found the standard, count to 100 by ones and tens. And then if you go to my template, there it is, count to 100 by ones and tens. And then this carries into first grade, so you'd also need to put in first grade, count to 120. It may say by ones and tens, I don't remember, but you'll find that standard language there, and then it probably ends there. Then you go to the next one, apply relationships. So I pulled that from probably comparing numbers less than, more than, equal to, would be applying relationships. So I read that bullet pointed one. I went to the Colorado Academic Standards and I found the standard that matched that bolded item, and I put the standard in this template. So for the first night, you'd need to find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things that you match standards to. And that's going to be pretty quick. And then, like from our class period Tuesday night, I included a progression document in that too. It's in the Canvas shell in week 2, and there are bolded items in that as well. So you could pull that up and cross-reference those bolded items to Colorado Content Standards. Once you find the standard, you pop it into the matrix. You might have to start adding more lines. In fact, you will have to start adding more lines, and then hit those 4 or 5 standards, and you're done for that week. So then by the end of our first 7 weeks, we'll have covered all the priority standards that we're going to cover in this class. So by end of week 7, you jump on, take the 10 minutes or whatever it takes to pop in the new standards in these boxes, and then pretty much you're done with that part of the assessment. You're done with that first product. Then if you use the math progression documents option, I think this part's going to be easier to answer too. Domain selected would just be math progression documents, and then you want to select, of the priority standards, I only want you to do one operator, like do addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, fractions, or place value. Just pick one of those. Don't do them all. So the simplest one would be addition. So in domain selected, you would put, I chose to use the math progression documents, and I'm going to highlight addition. So then in the second bullet, how does addition build across grades, and how are the concepts connected? And the money you're ahead here is that we've already talked about that in class. We've had those discussions back and forth. I've given you some pointers, so you're already going to have a good idea of how to answer that. When you get to teaching for conceptual understanding, so how do we teach addition for conceptual understanding? By week 4, we will have already talked all the way through addition. We will have had, and you see we're in the classroom, we're playing games, we're highlighting strategies. So you'll already have solid answers to this, so it should be pretty easy to answer. And then the key learning again is just after you've completed it, there's no wrong answer there. What did you learn? Tell me what you learned. So there's no way I can count that wrong. Anyway, if you use that second option, the math progression documents, as opposed to just picking a specific standard, I think it'll flow more easily for you. And then you can slowly put it together over the course of the next 6 or 7 weeks. And then in the last week of class, you can type up the 2 to 3 page summary, which should flow pretty well, turn it in, and you're done with it. If you need more clarification, there may still be some things that are a little muddy for you. Email me and I can provide more clarification, or meet me after class next week, or the next time we have class, or in the next couple of times we have class, and I can clarify anything for you regarding this assessment.